Hit the restart button. We're right there to recharge those batteries. We're here to help you. Restart, recharge. Restart, recharge.
Aloha, I'm Katie Ritter.
And I'm Justin Thomas, and this is the Restart Recharge podcast, a podcast for coaches by coaches. We are bringing you tips and tricks to help in your everyday work as an instructional technology coach, or, whatever they call you in your school district.
So hopefully you're going to leave here today with this episode feeling a little bit less on your own coaching island.
And today's episode is kind of a fun one. It's called New Coach Who Dis, like when you get a new phone. We got a couple new coaches with us here. We say new, but you guys have been, you've been in your school year, all school year long. But for this episode, we want listeners to be able to gain an understanding of how to transition from the coaching role with confidence. So you're going to hear from both of our first year coaches on their experiences transitioning out of the classroom and out of an administration role and into this coaching role. So veteran coaches will enjoy relatable flashbacks from the past, like a throwback Tuesday in this case. Yes. As Mallory and Mark are going to relay their experiences, and new transitioning coaches are going to be able to hopefully learn some tips and tricks on how to kind of navigate this new world of tech coaching here today. So,
nice. Did you say Throwback Tuesday, Justin?
Throwback Tuesday, yeah. I know.
Isn't it Throwback Thursday?
Well, yeah, but it's coming out on Tuesday.
It's airing on Tuesday.
Oh, so good. I just had a whole moment of like, what day is it? I thought it was Friday today that we're recording.
We can make any of our days a throwback day.
Justin's always more with it than me. It takes me a minute to get on the speed with him.
I would say in some cases, not all the time. But let me introduce Mallory and Kessen. She is on here today with us. Mallory taught middle school English and high school computer science for 6 years, working with grades 7 through 12 in both rural and urban settings. A true believer in learning as an adventure, she completed her quest to become Google Level 1 and 2 certified educator, as well as a Classcraft, Nearpod, and Screencastify certified educator. Mallory is now a technology integration coach in a large public school district in the Cincinnati area. Outside of coaching, you can find Mallory running the Teaching Gamers YouTube channel, which focuses on all ways that people can teach and learn with games. And you can catch her at the hashtag games4, like the number 4, Ed, Twitter chats on Thursdays, Throwback Thursdays.
Thank you.
Welcome, Mallory.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Good to be here.
And I have the pleasure of introducing Mark Gumm on our team. Mark has a total of 7 years of teaching experience as an elementary teacher in Georgia and Ohio. He earns his bachelor's degree in psychology from Morehouse College and a master's degree from the University of Dayton in educational leadership. Immediately before joining our team as a tech coach here at Forward Edge, he worked as a school administrator, serving as the Dean of Discipline and Behavior at a charter school in Dayton, which if you know Mark, it's a little hard to see him in that disciplinary role. He's so friendly all the time. He's earned his Google Level 1 and 2 certifications, as well as his Apple Teacher certification, and he is currently pursuing his doctorate at Antioch University with a focus on critical pedagogy. Mark also works as an adjunct psychology professor for Wilberforce University, and he is happily married with a father of 3 boys in Centerville, Ohio. So welcome, Mark. We're very excited to have you with us today for the first time.
I'm so happy to be here, Katie, and Justin, and Mallory.
Whole crew.
Making rounds.
Right.
Awesome. So we're going to dive in talking about your first year as a coach. It's always a little bit scary. And so we gave a little bit in your guys' introductions and the bios that you provided us so that we could introduce us. But if you would both take just a couple of minutes and just sort of share, because I always think it's so interesting to hear people's journey into the role of a tech coach. So share kind of that path and that journey and sort of what was that spark or that flame that led you to wanting to move into this role?
So for me, I moved into it from the classroom role. And I, for as long as I have memories, have always been a tech nerd. And a little bit of a geek and everything, and have.
Well, you're in good company.
I know, right? Like I've found my people. But part of what happened with that was that I've always been really drawn to tech, whether it was through games, computers, whatever it was. And so for me, I would say that my journey kind of started with when I was first teaching, I was trying to pull in all of these different tech resources and bring them into some of the rural schools that I was working in, where they weren't really used to having as many of the resources readily available. Um, and I will never forget that my eighth graders at the time actually said, they're like, "Why do you teach English? You should teach computers. Like, you are a computer teacher." And I was like,
Nothing
"Well, I
like
can do
career
both."
advice from eighth grade.
I know, right? Like, thank you,
Know your
eighth
whole
graders.
life.
So when I moved down to Cincinnati, I started as English teacher, and then I was asked to teach one of the computer science classes because I have a master's in ed tech. And I was like, sure, cool, on it, got it. And it was partly through that I really got to see some of like the fun and excitement of like, you don't really know what the problems are that are going to pop up, and that you're learning right along with people. And so then after about 5 years with that, I was looking for a new challenge, a new change, things like that. And ended up becoming a tech coach. So for me, it's really pulled on a lot of my career advice from the eighth graders. They were right. I'm working with tech and computers now. But a lot of it too is kind of that journey of realizing how much I love getting to not only work with people on problem solving and things like that, but in some of my classroom work too, one of the things that always meant the world to me was anytime someone would show kindness to teachers and show that they were there to help support teachers too. So I feel like I get to do that on the daily now, and I get to like be the support that I wish I had, kind of thing. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, I was a discipline and behavior coach, and I think, thinking back, you run into kids who get suspended, expelled. You're asking yourself, well, what did they do that bad to get suspended or expelled? And I think a lot of that kind of turned into thinking, well, what can we really do with curriculum itself? What can we do with education itself? How do we really even think about it? And I started thinking, well, I need to challenge myself more, in that it's not just about getting the kid out the room, suspending them. Maybe we need to look into some things. So I kind of wasn't looking for a new role, but kind of like realized I wanted to do more self journey. I wanted to figure out, how can I even build myself more in education? And so when the opportunity came knocking, it was almost like I got to run through this door. And in doing so, I'm so happy I went, because I was able to see that there are many ways to stop or curtail some of the behaviors other than just suspending kids. And I think you really got to kind of look at, well, what is happening in the classroom and all those dynamics. And so that kind of led me to this point where I'm able to kind of see if I could take my this former self and put me in the self as an administrator or discipline and behavior coach. I think I would find that there would probably be less kids in the room. So I think that was something interesting. I think if people kind of began to just think about what are those dynamics, and what does the classroom structure really look like, or even can look like. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Two really good.
I know.
answers on
It's
background here.
totally different pathways.
A tale of two coaches.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
good
good.
one. English
I know,
teacher.
so alliteration.
Well, let's talk a moment about perceptions, because you both have kind of a different background leading you into this path. So prior to becoming a tech coach, what were your kind of perceptions or thoughts on what a tech coach was? Maybe you saw them roaming around your building. You're like, I don't really know what they do 100%. But then after your year as a tech coach, what has changed from that perception you initially had, maybe before you came into this role?
Yeah, Justin. Originally, I thought that a tech coach was just a tech person in the building that just kind of like hooked up devices and made sure things work.
You and every teacher out there. Yeah.
I was like every other teacher. Yeah. And it wasn't until I realized, my gosh, they do a lot. We do so much more than just hooking up or plugging in. I mean, we're there to build relationships. And I think that that's something, you would think, well, computers don't build relationships. They're two different universes, but essentially they do. I mean, a lot of times, it is about relationships, and teachers, some of them feel like they're on islands. So having that connection to build with people other than plugging in, you kind of look forward to that. And I think that that was something as a coach now, as a tech coach now, that's something that I found amazing. And I think that I built so many new relationships with coaches and teachers, and everybody in the building. You're really an asset to a larger group of people. And I think that that's something that you can't trade, you know. So
Well, it's interesting you say that too, with the idea that with technology, we don't always think about the human component of it.
right.
And with computer science, we always talked about, and I would always teach my students that computer science isn't just technology, it's how humans interact with it and how people interact with it.
Right.
And that sometimes, like, you know, because tech by itself, it just kind of chills there and doesn't really do too much, but it's when we add that human component into it that it can change. So I think that that's kind of ties in a little bit to that point about building those relationships and seeing that, you know, you can show people that they can do this too. They can make this
Right.
happen. They can make this magic work and everything. I always tell my teachers I work with that I'm telling them the magician's secrets. Like, so I'm like, I'm going to tell you the magic secrets so you
That's
can
right.
be a magician too.
That's right. That's right.
I like that.
That's right. That's right.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, good. Mallory, did you have a separate perception before
yeah,
you became
so-
a coach?
Yeah, I would probably say for me, the schools that I was working in, we didn't have a tech coach in particular. Like, we kind of, like a lot of teachers, I think, we had people in the building who were our like tech support. But for me, there was one of the tech coordinator we had at my last school. She was phenomenal. Like, I put her in category of I want to be her when I grow up. And I remember, like, I would just like watch what she does, because yes, she would do some things like helping do like a little bit of break fix or trying to help with that. But there would be teachers who'd come in and say, I want to have this kind of project in my class. Like, what could I do? How could I make that happen? I'd frequently walk into her room and bounce ideas off of her and things like that. And she was always just this like very like excited, but also calming force for everybody. Like, tech wasn't a problem when you went and talked to her.
Mhm.
And so for me, she was like 100% kind of like what I had in my head of like what a tech coach would do. And I think that if anything, what I've seen over the last year is that I'm excited because I get to do quite a bit of that, but then it also takes it that next step further toward even more change and things like that. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So big change going from teaching English and computer science and middle and high school, and Mark teaching elementary, to moving more into more of a discipline admin role, to now you guys are serving in this tech coach, really supportive role. And Mark, I think you said it really nicely that you're kind of this force that supports, you know, everyone in the building. So what was the biggest or the most difficult adjustment that you had to make to switch into this new role?
I think I kind of had two that were pretty big for me. One was, and I think this might be a little bit different from you, Mark, because you had some of that admin experience.
For sure.
But for me, my interactions with admin were as a teacher, and my interactions with people like, you know, superintendents or curriculum directors were like minimal, if they ever happened.
Sitting in convocation at the beginning of the year.
Yes, convocation, they say good luck, and we go, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Or seeing them at graduations or something like that. So I think that was one of the big adjustments for me, was now I was working with those people weekly, daily, whatever it may be. And for me at first it was like, oh, okay, hello, hi, like a little nerve-wracking and everything. But something that I've kind of gotten used to over time, and something that like I still find myself having to tell myself sometimes, I'm like, they're people too. They're people, and they're people who want things or like do things outside of work more than just their job. Breathe, you're good. So that was one of the big adjustments for me, I think. And the other thing I'd say too, and you're gonna crack up over this, Mark. Elementary, man. Oh my goodness,
Oh, yeah.
because my background is
Oh,
middle
yeah.
school and high
That's right.
school.
That's right. Oh yeah.
So I came into elementary and I'm like,
Yeah.
this is a whole new thing. This is
Yeah.
a whole
Yeah.
new beast that we're dealing with. So I'm
They
excited.
say the same thing about us secondary people, right?
Yeah, there's a little bit of division there, but it's okay. Healthy
Like
division.
bunch of bullies in secondary.
Yeah.
But like, it's been nice though, because I feel like
Good.
I've gotten to do a lot of work with elementary teachers, and it's cool because I go into it telling them like, y'all are teaching me just as much as I'm teaching you the tech stuff, but you're teaching me about your world too. And I learned way more about elementary this year than I ever thought I would know in my life.
Yeah.
And so that's probably been one of the other big adjustments, was kind of learning how to tailor some of what I knew about middle school, high school, and what I knew about technology, and find ways to bring it to the elementary as well. was a big step for me.
Yeah, I totally agree, Mallory. I think the first time I went from like supporting K-12 as a coach, mine was huge on elementary because you're like, oh, just have them log in, and like my colleague who was a former elementary teacher, she's like, they don't even know their letters yet. How are they just going to log in?
Right, and then you're like,
and I'm like, this really is a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Right.
it's definitely
It's
totally different thing we have. You're like, okay, well, I'm a jerk. I take that back.
yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely add. I mean, very right on the nail there, Mallory. Evaluations. I think, going in, you see students, acting up or what have you. Like I was so used to watching the classroom turn into chaos very quickly. And so you get that witness, they call it, you get, kind of that spunk of knowing this is how you correct this behavior quickly. I think the adjustment was seeing that you can walk into a school that was completely opposite of what you've known for years. I taught in an urban district for so long, I was used to seeing certain behaviors. So walking into a district and it's like, oh my gosh, everybody's sitting down, they're learning, this is happening. I was like, this is great. So it definitely was a learning curve that way. And that I had to learn very quickly how to help every different type of learner that's an educator. So, helping teachers kind of navigate their own paths and figure out what's best for them in their own way. I think was interesting because I was used to a certain typical type of teacher based on that student's response. So I think that was really cool to kind of change my lens, my perspective. I think that you have to be, very adaptable and just really see the good, the positive in everybody. Because I think that really helps your role as a coach. And I think for me, going into the school I'm at now, I can clearly see like, wow, like the little bit you do each day really does count. And I think as a coach, some people just want that person, that they can just rely on, and being there every day. We talked earlier about that a tech support is, they may come to your room maybe once, every 3 days, but I'm going in every day. So it was like that, you're that partner, you're that extension, you're that person I need. And so they look forward to seeing me. And, when they don't see me on Fridays, they're like, hey, Mark, I was trying to find you on Friday, but I have you on Monday. Listen, and before you know it, you just open this wonderful door of learning. So, yeah.
That's sweet.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of talked about it a little bit with that, but, sometimes with tech support, you put in your tech ticket and then eventually they show up. But ours is a little bit different role. We're like showing up and they're like, did I call you? Did something go on here? You're like, no, I'm just seeing how things are going today, Yes. And so I think, like you kind of said, it is kind of a weird shift where, you can develop those relationships, but you're working across the entire district in many cases, or the entire building. And I think that is a different role than, as a teacher, because sometimes you're kind of just locked into your classroom per se, teaching the students. And at the end of the day, you're like, oh, I can finally let go and talk to some people. But obviously our role is a little different. Talking about elementary, I mean, that was the same with elementary. I was working with a teacher on Google Slides, and we had a cool interactive Google slide where they had like different coins and stuff, and they were going to be able to like move the coins around. And, I went in thinking like, this is going to be pretty simple. The teacher's like, I don't know, I think you might, need to be here for this. I'm like, yeah, welcome down, no problem. I was there for like an hour just because kids would like, it was all sorts of, the kids be like, I'm like, all right, what's going on? And they're like, my money's gone. And sure enough, they like deleted their like little coins, or they deleted their text box. They couldn't type anything.
That was my reaction in college. My money's gone.
I think everybody knows that.
Everybody's had that reaction.
Yeah. Like, where did it all go? I love going to the elementaries. I love working with them. But it definitely was a little bit of a change because 7 through 12 was my background. And I was like, whoa, this is a whole, they're running up. They want hugs. They want to talk to you. I'm like, what is happening right now?
Yeah,
like a whole different place. But overall, obviously there might be, that was a little bit of a blunder. I thought that, things are going to go a little smoother with some of these cases. Were there any coaching blunders that I want to ask you, if there's any coaching blunders that you had in your first year? We'll get to in a moment. First, we want to take a momentary break for a word from our sponsor. Looking for a program that reaches all teachers in learning new tools to integrate in their lessons? Edu Badges is the answer. Edu is an anytime, anywhere badging program that is designed to take bite-sized tools for instruction and teach teachers how to use them. Edu has received the ISTE Seal of Alignment for educator standards, and each badge in our expanding library is aligned to the ISTE standards and the SAMR model. Learn more about the program that teachers call addicting at forward-edge.net/edubadges. Welcome back to the Restart Recharge podcast. We were asking about your coaching blunders in that first year. Obviously, we all have some of them. Some of them are maybe more than others. Sometimes you get in your head that you're like, I'm fixated that this is going to work. And then you go in there and you find out that it's not working. So then you reach out to a colleague and they're like, no, I don't think that's a feature yet. And you're like, oh, well, I got to go tell that teacher that I was just totally way off on something else. That happens at times. But is there any coaching blunders that either of you had that you were willing to share?
Let me preface by saying I've been doing this longer, so I've got way more than you ever will. So don't be nervous.
I think for me, I have two that come to mind. One was, and it was my first big blunder, was we were doing a PD day, and I had a session I was leading on Nearpod, and huge fan of it and everything. But that particular day, I don't know if it was internet, I don't know if it was the site itself, I don't know what it was.
Full moon.
Full moon. It's that middle school, high school thing. I'm telling you, the full moon is a thing.
Uh-huh.
No, it just nothing. It didn't work, not at all. And it was the day that I was like introducing it to teachers, and full blown, like I freaked out because I was like, we were still working from remotely at the time, working from home. And I'm just sitting there trying to figure out like, what can I do from here? And like, is it a me thing? Do I have to move to a new location? What do I have to do? And I finally told the teachers, I said, take like 5 minutes. I'll figure out what's going on. And I said, worst case scenario, I'll record the session, post it for you guys. So you'll still be able to view it and still be able to get your credit for it. And I remember I referred back to, we have buddies on our team, and I referred back to my buddy, and I was like, help me. I don't know what to do. Like, did I just totally screw this up? Like, am I going to be in trouble? Like, I don't know. And, she told me to breathe, which is really good advice when you have a blunder. And then we kind of talked through like, okay, saying that you're going to go through and do the recording is good, like, do some kind of follow-up with the teachers after. And all the teachers said they understood. And what I loved was they were even kind of joking about, even the tech coach has those days. And so it actually did provide kind of a cool moment where I could tell them, yes, even the tech coach has those days. And so when you have those days, don't be afraid to come tell me. Or if you're feeling like something's just straight up not working, come tell me, because you saw that it didn't work for me and we had to kind of go to plan B.
Mm-hmm.
So that would probably be one of the big ones. And then the other was a day that I was co-teaching with a teacher to help her integrate a new tool into her class. And again, she was teaching remote, and it was just Zoom was not working. The tool was not working. Nothing was working for us. And it was kind of really cool to see, because we both had taken the approach with the students of, all right, everybody like come back a little bit later. It's cool. We'll get it figured out. And if not, we'll figure out something different. We'll figure out what else is going on. And what it actually led to was we found out that there was an issue with how it was rolled out for the district. And so it actually led to us kind of finding a solution or finding an issue that was going on, which was pretty cool. But yeah, that was those two things. It was more of, I would always tell my computer science students this: whenever you need technology the most, it will fail you.
Yeah.
So always make sure you have a plan B. So that was probably, those two things are kind of what those had in common, was plan B.
Well, yeah. And I like that you go to that plan B, because sometimes I've seen people be in the position of leading the PD and things are going wrong, and you're just trying to force it because you think you like have to get through the session. And sometimes it's like, you can't fit a square peg in a round hole. And if it's just like not working that day, people will grant you the grace of like, this isn't working, like give them their time back. I just think the worst thing that you can do with teachers and like lose all credibility is waste their time.
Agreed.
So I think you made good on what was an unfortunate situation. Yeah.
So yeah, I think I have one big one that's really funny. We finally had the opportunity to get back in person, and I was super excited about it. And I was like ready, vamped, ready to go. And I was doing a Pear Deck presentation. It was a PD for some Roberts staff, and super excited about it. And got in there, and literally the screen was just on my screen, so I didn't duplicate screens nor extend it. So I'm like presenting on my laptop, like, yeah, as you see, and literally nothing's up. And so they started looking around, and they're like, Mark, there's nothing up there. So really quick fix, but I kind of like on the cuff was like, let's extend our displays. Let me show you how to do that very quickly. So I just kind of weeded it in to teaching, like, this is how you extend your screen, by the way. Now we can all begin, so just little blunder there. That was like a quick fix. The other one was just, it's so important to be prepared. You don't know who you're walking into, and being new, some teachers are very, oh yeah, you can show me anything, I'm ready. And then there's other teachers that are like, I need that script, it needs to be 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 15 minutes, make it happen. You just kind of got to know your audience. And so for this teacher, she was very much like personality number 2. And so literally I walked in and I was like, yeah, so I'm here to work with you. I'm excited. And she was like, yeah, I need to go to Google Drive, Wait, can you go back and do that again? What did you do there? Just very quick. And so I was like intimidated, and I said, okay, hold on, time out. I see that you have a lot of questions. I want to answer those questions. Let's do this. So we just opened a Google Doc together. I wrote down her 4 questions, and I said, give me a day with your questions, because you have some really good questions. Inside, I'm like, oh my God, I need help. Where's Slack? Where's my team? Where's my team? And I just love that you can get on Slack and find that information. Most of the time when I need something, it's already there. So I can just have to kind of scroll up and look and say, oh, that question was answered. Here's the answer to it. Perfect. And I'll write it down in the Google Doc or type it. But I was able to get back to that teacher. And by the time I had all her questions answered, she was like, that was very good. And I was like, yeah, see, I got you. But inside I was like, that's one of those moments where you really realize you're not an island. And I think that having a team of coaches that do this the way we do it is phenomenal. And I preach it to the choir probably, but it's super awesome to have people you can rely on. And those were 2 quote unquote blunders that turned into be like success stories. And even to this day, that teacher still asks for me. And so
good.
Cool. Yeah.
Well, I think that's awesome that you I always will tell coaches, like, you don't have to know everything. You can't know everything. If you try to pretend that you do know everything, they're going to see through that act.
Yes.
So I think it's awesome that you kind of said, like, I'm not sure, let me take some of these questions back and get you the answers. And as long as you do follow up and you do it quickly, no one cares that they have to wait a little bit, as long as they're going to ultimately get that help and that you're going to follow up with them. I mean, if you would make something up and tell them just to like, because you're afraid you don't want to look like you don't know, or you're not qualified for this job, like that doesn't do any good.
No.
So I think that's good. Well, I'll share 2 of mine. One, I still want to die when I think of it. And the other one goes to show that I think that, how like dogs start to look like their owners. I think like teachers take on the persona of the age of students that they have, like kind of similarly. So that's the other one. But the first one, it was, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. So people didn't really understand the concept of like Google Drive in the cloud and what does that mean. So I was trying to explain Google Drive to this district who was like literally in the process of switching from Office to Google, and I'm explaining Google Drive and what's the cloud mean? What's the benefit? Why would I want to log into Google Chrome? So all my like Chrome bookmarks extensions are stored, whatever. So I tried to explain it. I said, if you would log in, and as long as you're using Google Drive and you're logged into Chrome, let's say a tornado came through and took your laptop, you would just be able to log into the next computer and all of your stuff would be there. And everyone's face in the room got very serious. And I was like, what did I say? And someone kind of leaned and whispered to me. They said, there was a really bad tornado that came through here like a handful of years ago, and I wanted to die. So know your audience is right, Mark.
Well, research on this.
They saw how terrible I felt, and then everyone started laughing, and so then it was okay. But it was like, oh my goodness, that I like want to die if I say something insensitive. So that I still crawl in my skin on that one. And then the other one was a bunch of middle school teachers. Here's you take on the persona of the age that you teach. And I was leading a session on Peer Deck, and the join code comes up.
Oh no.
And the join code was like DOUSH. And everyone in the room is like dying laughing. And they're like, Katie, what's the join code? What's the join code? And like trying to get me to say it. And I'm like, you guys are so acting like you're students right now. But it was hilarious. They, I'm normally pretty, I laugh at myself, but I'm usually pretty put together in those situations. And so they were trying to throw me off a little bit. But yeah, so anyways, that one was a fun one. But anyway, thought I would just share so you guys know you're not alone.
I feel like because Pear Deck's probably my biggest blunder too. So there's a common
There's a theme for all of us.
But I'll keep mine short just for our listeners out there. Don't try and have like 90 people all join a Pear Deck at the same time. That's not going to go very well.
My nearpod was 100 people. The one that didn't work.
My Pear Deck. I thought, I didn't even think about it, but I had 4 different districts try and join in on the Pear Deck, and the thing crashed hardcore. Just nice little tip for there.
Well, there we go.
Quick
tip.
Mindful Pear Deck, I guess. I don't know.
So in Jenny McGarra's book, Courageous Adventures, she calls fail forward, and she describes fail as first attempt in learning, which I really kind of like that idea, because a lot of times we say like, it's okay to fail and fail forward and recover. And some people are like, what does that mean? So I kind of like that expression of first attempt in learning, because it's like, yes, that's good. And then we learn from it. We move on, just like we all learned from those blunders that we just talked about. No natural disaster references. So when you think of some of those moments that you've had, whether it was the ones that you shared or just other little things along the way, and those fail forward moments, what is it that got you through? How did you continue to power through? And Mallory, you referenced your buddy. So I think that's a great way, but what's the support, or what are those ways that kept you moving in those fail forward moments?
I think for me, I would say, kind of echoing, what I said earlier and what Mark said about the team, having a team or having people that I could go back to and either tell the stories of, oh my gosh, I can't believe this just happened, or I was asked a question and I've never even heard of this thing. Has anyone heard of it? Help me out here, friends. Things like that. So having that support team helps. I think too, and for people who know me, I watch way too much reality TV. This relates. But in divorce court, still
this is a new one that I haven't heard you talk about yet.
In divorce court, Judge Faith mentions, like, whenever she talks to people about starting over, she always tells them, you're not starting over from nothing, you're starting over from experience. So even if there are situations where, okay, messed up, that's a blunder, moving on to the next one kind of thing, I always try to keep that in mind too, that, even on days when I walk away feeling like, oh gosh, I didn't know like any of these answers, or I didn't know how to handle that, or I was running behind on that, it's okay. I'm starting over from experience. I've learned, how much I can get done in a day. I've learned about new tools. I've learned that I don't know quite as much. I've learned that I know more than I thought, whatever it is. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Say that again.
That when you're starting over, you're not starting over from nothing, you're starting over from experience. Right?
From
See?
divorce
That's good.
court.
It's really
From
good.
divorce court.
Reality TV.
I love that.
Let's go.
See, people think you can't learn things from reality TV.
That's right, man.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, so that's been a big thing that's kind of helped me keep moving forward, is kind of keeping that mentality of, like, even when I kind of feel like, maybe I don't quite know as much, or I feel a little bit unsure of myself, I try to keep in mind, you're just learning new things every day. It's all cool. It's good. You're learning right along with people.
Yeah.
So
I would definitely say, like, the self-identity piece. I think that was huge, because coming into the role, completely confident in, what it means to be a discipline and behavior coach, education, going into a classroom. I can run that room when I get in there. But, coming to a new role, you may not have thought about, like, well, what is your identity now? Because it changes, your role changes, therefore, like, your identity fluctuates a little bit. So you kind of have to know, like, who you are. And so I would definitely say, reading good books, when we read the book, Know Your Why, that was a pivotal change for me. Or what's your why? Know Your Why.
Find your why.
Find your why. There it is. Find your why. See, find it. When you start examining yourself and taking that role of, well, who am I really? Yeah. And why am I here? I think that will help you in your journey. And I think that's been pivotal for me because I came in kind of a little hesitant about the role, excited, hesitant, but I knew I was like on a rocket. So you had that confidence, but in all short, you kind of just have to really start digging in and defining yourself because, a great concept I had at Morehouse when I was, back in my college days, we always said, define yourself to redefine the world. So you got to start with yourself first, and then you redefine the world based on knowing yourself. So that identity piece is important. Read a good book. You know, have those moments of watching reality TV. Have those moments where you can take a break from work so that you can get that self help.
Yeah.
And kind of self development and all those pieces that really hone in on who you are.
Yeah,
And that's been
sure.
huge for me. So yeah.
I like it. And you both made reference a couple of times like to having the team and how supportive our team was. And so I just want to, for our listeners, some of those coaches who don't have a team and you are on your own coaching island, I would just take that moment of, your team doesn't have to be all employed by your same school district. And so I would just encourage you to find that tribe, reach out to our team on social media or find that tribe, whether it's another group of coaches going through the same certifications that you're going through or through professional organizations or people that you meet at conferences. Like, don't be afraid to reach out to exchange contact information, phone numbers, social media handles, emails, and you can form your own little tribe. I can't tell you how cool it's been for me to, working with ISTE, see different coaches that have never worked together in the same district, but they present every year together at ISTE and they do things together because they've realized that you cannot do this job alone. And you cannot do it to the best of your ability by doing this job alone. And so I would just highly encourage people, reach out, make your own team. If you're not fortunate enough to have multiple coaches within the district, there's still a team out there for you. You just have to reach out and put the lineup together.
Well, I know one way too that and we kind of talked about this in the social media episode a bit, but one way too that I've grown my PLN before is I'll even look to whether it's podcasts or books or people I follow and see who else is following them. So would even recommend to people listening in to check out, who's following our Restart Recharge podcast, who's commenting on things, and check out and see, are there other coaches, and kind of start connecting with them on that too is a real good spot.
Yeah.
And I would definitely say too, it's okay. You can start friendships with the teachers that you have at your school. I think that, of course, keeping it professional, that's kind of important too, because half of our lives are at our school and the other half is, at our job. So, or I should say our home base, Fort Edge. So a lot of times I've found this kind of nice pairing of both worlds where I'm able to make those lasting friendships. We have a teacher right now that's ready to retire. And so everybody put money in for her. We're excited to watch her go. And, she's talking about how she's going to move back home to Alabama. So she's leaving the state. So it's just important to kind of realize that you can find connections with people and it doesn't have to be, like you said, just, in the line of work. It can be in other facets too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, obviously you both have a year under your belt, maybe another week or so to go, but in some cases you're pretty much there. You just got to go to the finish line, right?
After the year it's been, we're good.
We've got there. So is there anything that you would want to improve upon for moving into next school year, or change, or just things that you've enjoyed that you want to take with you? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would definitely say, hosting more professional developments, doing more PDs, getting out there more. I think, this year was definitely new and a lot of learning the LMS Schoology, learning Google, learning all those things, and then even using them. Now it's time to kind of vamp up and give the school what they really need. And I think, the first year was very much like a learning component, but now it's time to show and perform. Yeah.
I would say for me, I think I've had a really different experience from a lot of the coaches on our team, just because I've been mostly virtual for a good portion of the year. So that's part of why I chuckle about what do I want to do differently next year. I want to be on campuses. I want to get to go see people. Right? I want to see people in 3D.
In person.
But I think kind of on that note, one thing that I'd love to do is to be able to meet with admin and meet with people in their buildings and talk about things that are building specific. Because one thing that I've seen, even just from being on campus, when I can be, is that everybody has different focuses, different ideas of what they want to do, all aimed toward, making their school or their teachers better. But I want to see what I can do to really help them focus on those goals. So that's going to be one of the things that I think I really want to do next year.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So thinking about, I think our last question for you guys, what are the top 2 pieces of advice that you would give a brand new coach? And if it would help you think about it, like what are the top 2 things that you wish you could have told yourself at the beginning of this role?
So if I think back to myself at the start, my one joke piece of advice is you can go to the bathroom and get a drink whenever you'd like, because
Yes.
that was my first question I asked Katie, I think, when we
Yes.
were meeting was, so who do I have to ask when I have to go to the bathroom? And she was like, you don't have to do that anymore. You're okay. Just because you're so used to that teacher mode. But in terms of things that help year long and everything, I think the first thing I would say is listen some more. Whether it's to teammates, if it's listening to teammates, if it's listening to teachers. There have been a number of times where I'll walk into a classroom and they just kind of want to talk about what's going on with their personal world, or they'll say, I want help with tool A, and then in asking them, well, what do you want to do? What's your goal? You find out that tool B would actually be better for them, or things like that. So listening has been a big one for me. And then the other thing I would probably say too is to give yourself credit, give yourself some grace that like you definitely, more than you realize, and that it's okay when you don't know things. So I'd say that making sure that listening is probably the number one thing that you're doing. And then to give yourself that grace of, quite a bit and you're good. It's kind of like we tell new teachers when they come into the classroom, even on the days when you feel like you know nothing, you know more than your students.
Mm-hmm.
So giving yourself that grace, but also the grace that if you do need to go look up something or you do need to go find something real quick, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll echo your listening. That was a big thing that I had to train myself on at the beginning because I was young. I wanted to prove myself. I wanted these veteran teachers to like know that I could help them and contribute to them. So I felt like I needed to like have an answer for everything at first. And I was listening to respond. I wasn't listening to hear what they were saying at the beginning.
It's a good way to put it.
And so that was a big one for me. So I think that's a great, that little nugget I think is a golden ticket right there for new coaches.
Yeah, I would definitely say relationships and trust. First, relationships, knowing how to build relationships before you even get to the tools, all of the, all those pieces that come with technology integration and curriculum, just really building that bond, because you think you may have an idea of the school you're in, but until you're there every day, like working on the ground with the people, you find that the relationships, that's what leads you to more people.
Mm-hmm.
It really gets down to it. So I would say, taking the time to build relationships with people, whether it's, hey, good morning, how are you, all the way to, hey, I developed this on your behalf and I just want you to take a look at it. I mean, it goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
So relationships, and then also trust. I think that they go together, but they're a little different. With trust, the aspect is, it's much more like we're in this together, that you're not alone, that you can confide in me and I'm going to keep your stuff private. There's been times where I've shared things with the principal that I would not have shared with everybody. And I've heard things about teachers that I'm not going to share out. It's very important that trust is built. And I think that you can go so long. There's so many ways you can move when you build trust with people. And I think those two things have been pivotal. And I think as a new coach, just having, go in, trying to build relationships, and then going in, establishing yourself to the point of earning trust, because it can be a positive thing, but if you kind of go in the wrong way with the wrong spirit, the wrong attitude, I can see where that would be negative, and then that won't work out. So
yeah. That's huge.
I would even say too, trust in yourself. I mean, that's something too that, you go in and you're like, damn, I'm gonna be able to cover everything, but you don't have to know every single thing about every single tool. Like,
that's right.
You got other teammates, you have PLNs, you have things like that, where if it's something that you're not sure about, obviously you have the ability to reach out and connect with other people and just have trust in yourself to be able to figure things out and work with those teachers.
That's right. I would definitely say, our team, Forward Edge, Katie, I tell you this, but I'm so serious. You did such a good job of finding I call them Avengers, finding these people who are good, who are good in like every other facet of the world, wherever they are. And we've learned how to come together and use each other and learn from each other and build relationships and trust. And that's turned into a really positive working environment. I think that's what teams want. I think that's what coaches want, is the idea of just being able to bounce off ideas and not feel judged if you got it wrong or if you didn't display or answer something correctly. It's, you can look past that stuff and build. So good job, Katie.
No, you guys are the Avengers. I like that. That's a good name for you guys.
Yeah, maybe we should make some graphics out there.
Don't get started. It's going to be over. I got some ideas already.
I can do my Photoshop skills. I got this.
We got might be out there on the social media. We'll see. But what will be out there on social media is obviously our next episode. It's going to be coming out on July 13th.
Woo-wee.
Already getting into the thick of things in July. So kind of crazy to even think about being that far.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Mark and Mallory, it's been so nice having you both and talking about that first year as a coach. Love having that perspective. I'm sure lots of our listeners are probably relating, whether it was their first year this year or they're just remembering those terrible things they said their first few years. But anyway, so be sure to subscribe to Restart Recharge wherever you listen to podcasts at restartrechargepodcast.com and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at RRCoachCast.
And also feel free to reach out and connect with us on these social media platforms. If there's anything that you want to know or any topics that are on your mind, please let us know and we'll be happy to feature it in a upcoming podcast.
And if you haven't already, we would love and be so grateful if you would subscribe and rate us, especially if you listen on Apple Podcasts. That will help other coaches find the podcast so that we can hopefully help them too, and they can become a part of our little tribe here so that they don't feel alone on their own island. So with that, go ahead and press the restart button.
Recharge your coaching batteries and leave feeling equipped and inspired to coach fearlessly with the Restart Recharge podcast.
A Tech Coach Collective. I'm getting this new mic thing down.
Welcome back to the Restart Charge pod. We're gonna take two
Long
on that.
pod. All right, even longer pause.
Hear it again.
I was like, let's go.